Hey guys, me, Sam Stein, managing editor at the Bulwark. I'm here with Andrew Eggar, author of Morning Shots. We're here to talk about the latest indignity in the Trump deportation regime. Andrew wrote about it this morning. It involves a story that broke last night that you probably read or saw Tim talk about it. The story's in Atlantic. I want to make sure I'm getting this right. A man named Kilmer Abrego Garcia was deported to El Salvador despite a judge's ruling that he should not be deported there. He was sent to the prison there. The judge was just saying, don't send him there because there's a credible threat that he would be subjected to persecution and torture. We're not going to rehash necessarily everything that Tim talked about in this video from last night. I just encourage you to go watch the video. It's really good. What we're going to talk about is something that Andrew observed up close, which is how Republicans have been reacting to any time that you point out that maybe, just maybe, they should, dot their I's, cross their T's, and go through the due process and make sure that everything's okay before sending people to these deportation camps, whatever you want to call them, prisons in El Salvador. Before we get into it, subscribe to our feed, critical content like this. All right, Andrew, two things I want to talk about. First is JD Vance. We have a vice president who is chronically online. I should not talk because I'm chronically online too, but I'm also not the vice president. And here JD was this morning or late last night tweeting at anyone or people who were critical of the administration for abducting Abrego Garcia and sending him to El Salvador. And can you summarize what Vance is doing here, the argument he's making, and just the validity of it?
Yeah, this is sort of a bewildering thing where because he's the most online member of the administration, he is often the first to react to some of the the principles. Yeah, sure. Elon's more online than anybody. JD, but Elon has his own little idiosyncratic things, right? A lot of times, like the first kind of like institutional response, like how the White House is going to spin a certain thing. A lot of times that's coming from Vance first because he's on Twitter, he's mixing it up. This story broke late last night. He's on Twitter at 1 a.m. and he posts this. He's chirping at Pod Save America's John Favreau, who's like, "Hey, you just deported this guy. A judge said you couldn't. You have admitted in court that it was an error to deport him, and yet you're saying that the say so of DHS, and you can't get him back, and the court can't make you get him back, and still DHS should be like the sole authority on who gets deported to these places and who doesn't." Right. But JD says, according to the court document you apparently didn't read, he, the man who was deported against a judge's order, was a convicted MS-13 gang member with no legal right to be here. My further comment is that it's gross to get fired up about gang members getting deported while ignoring citizens they victimize. So two things about this. One is, on the merits, it's wrong. Back in 2019, what happened to this guy was, some of the details vary according to whether you're listening to his lawyer or, DHS lawyers. But what seems like factually happened is pretty clear. He was in a Home Depot parking lot, waiting to get day laborer work. He got scooped up by local cops with a couple of other people. One of those people told that local cop, "Hey, this guy, he's an MS-13. He's a gang member." That was never additionally substantiated in any way. Like there was never anything like to prove that, and they never backed that up. But when it came time to look at this guy for federal deportation proceedings, he was handed over to DHS. DHS then files with the judge, "Well, we have a confidential source, this local cop, who tells us this guy is an MS-13 gang member." It's the only piece of information that's ever been
TLDR. He was never convicted of being.
Mm-hmm. A judge said he could, in theory, be deported, but that they were blocking him from being deported.
Anyone here illegally could, in theory, be deported.
Right.
So it's not exactly, an exceptional conclusion.
And to JD's specific thing, never convicted of anything. So he calls him a convicted MS-13 gang member. Just not true. But then the other interesting thing is the pivot, right? My further comment is that it's gross to get fired up about gang members getting deported while ignoring citizens they victimize. And this is just becoming the administration's stock response. Obviously, this guy's story just broke overnight, but there have been lots of reports in recent days of people getting swept up in this Trinidad Aragua dragnet and just shipped down to El Salvador, a lot of whom seem to have no real connections with Trinidad Aragua. And people are saying, well, okay, first of all, you're doing a really sloppy job. And second of all, sloppy job or not, isn't this a crazy process that you are bypassing the immigration courts? You're not talking to these people's lawyers. You're not doing any of that stuff. You're just scooping people off the street that you think are gang members and sending them off. And isn't that kind of crazy, even if you were, dotting your I's and crossing your T's?
To me, there's a lot of echoes here to what happened in the aftermath of 9/11, honestly, which was, people were very anxious about the actions the Bush administration was taking with respect to people who were captured on the battlefield. Obviously, a huge scandal with Abu Ghraib, bringing prisoners to Guantanamo Bay. And then if you were to raise those concerns, the stock response of the administration was, you're sympathizing with, alleged terrorists. In this case, they would drop alleged. And I see that not just in J.D. Vance's tweet, but what happened to you on the Hill yesterday, where you were just going around and talking to different Republican lawmakers, and you were getting basically the same stock response from them.
The lawmakers kind of went one of two directions. They would either say, look, this is going to be up to the courts to decide whether the Supreme Court has this power, and they would just kind of try to be quiet and leave it at that. One guy I talked to who went a different direction, much more in line with the rhetoric we've been hearing from the administration, was Senator Ted Cruz, and we can play the audio of that.
It's not surprising that the Bulwark's focus is defending alleged Venezuelan gang members.
Yeah, isn't alleged kind of the question, though? I mean, shouldn't there be some adversarial process?
Let me ask you something. How many stories did you write on the Venezuelan gang members that Joe Biden and the Democrats released that were murdering and raping Americans?
I wrote on immigration quite a bit, but
you didn't answer my question. Look, if you want to be a shill for violent gang members, listen, I've talked to too many Americans whose children were raped and murdered by these animals that you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah. So, essentially what he's doing is exactly the same thing, right? He's taking any question about this due process, and he's obviously specifically also going after the Bulwark, but he's flipping it around on its head, right? He's saying, look, the question is, should we be able to be assured that the administration is only scooping up gang members? Shouldn't there be some kind of process for determining whether these people are who you say they are? And the response to that is just, well, I can't believe you'd stick up for gang members like that. But no, it's everyone wants to see violent gang members deported, imprisoned, whatever.
It's a sophomoric response. It's so simple. Obviously, people don't want to have gang members roaming around our country, right? That. No one is arguing that. What we are arguing for is some sort of, guardrails against putting innocent people into prison camps, which doesn't seem like that strong an ask.
And it's not, we should be really clear, this is not a one-off response. This is the administration bedrock argument. The press secretary was out yesterday. There was a clip that went a little bit viral of a reporter, Andrew Feinberg of The Independent. He had DHS documents in his hand. Here's the reporter brandishing the document in her face, and here's how she responds to that.
Guide that DHS is using to determine who is an enemy alien, a trendy Iraqi number, deportable under the Enemy Aliens Act. It has criteria here that require 8 points to be classified as a TDA member. You can get classified by simply having certain symbols in your tattoos and wearing certain streetwear brands. That alone is enough to get someone classified as TDA and sent to El Salvador.
That's not true, actually, Andrew.
According to this document, it is.
No, according to the Department of Homeland Security and the agents, have you talked to the agents who have been putting their lives on the line to detain these foreign terrorists who have been terrorizing our communities? TDA is a vicious gang that has taken the lives of American women. And our agents on the front lines take deporting these people with the utmost seriousness. And there is a litany of criteria that they use to ensure that these individuals qualify as foreign terrorists and to ensure that they qualify for deportation. And the president made it incredibly clear to the American public that there would be a mass deportation campaign of not just foreign terrorists, but also illegal criminal aliens who have been wreaking havoc on American communities. And shame on you and shame on the mainstream media for trying to cover for these individuals who have... This is a vicious gang, Andrew. This is a vicious gang that has taken the lives of American women.
The government filed in court, which says all...
And you said yourself there are 8 criteria on that document.
They need 8 points.
And you are questioning the credibility of these agents who are putting their life on the line to protect your life and the life of everybody in this group and everybody across the country. And their credibility should be questioned. They finally have a president who is allowing them to do their jobs, and God bless them for doing it.
And so just to put a fine point on it, yes, this is a vicious gang that has taken the lives of American women. yes, but the whole question is, the whole like point of the whole thing is, are these human beings, the ones that you are scooping up and sending to El Salvador, are they in that gang? Have they done these things, right? That's the question. Because if they're not, then it's a big problem, right? I mean, and so it's just, it's this whole, it goes around and around and around, and that's the way they're going to respond to these stories so far.
The last thing I want to talk about is like, is there a breaking point here where, you know, I'm not saying that it has to be a sympathetic case that the administration finally concedes that they've overstepped, but where, frankly, pressure, rises to a significant level for them to at least put in some guardrails or acknowledge that they, there are a need for guardrails. And, when you went to the Hill, we were kind of curious. You and I just talked about it. Like, well, maybe some of the more civil libertarian-minded lawmakers will be queasy about this. And we also talked a little bit about how among conservative commentators and non-political minded commentators, but people like Joe Rogan, for instance, there was some queasiness about this, if not outright a recognition that this is wrong. Are we at a place culturally where you can sense the tides shifting here?
So there definitely has been a shift. I think Rogan is really striking. I mean, you mentioned like some of the guys at National Review or whatever are kind of knitting their brows over this, and like, yeah, I mean, good for them. I'm glad they're doing that. But like somebody like Joe Rogan, who's like in that sort of populist, very popular, broad space, is more significant. I think the way that the White House miscalculated on this is they picked this fight, right? They were saying, we're going to make this thing, these Venezuelan migrants, the tip of the spear here in the due process thing, and it's going to be an 80-20 issue for us because we're going after these gang members. But I think that the way they miscalculated is they've just gone about it so buffoonishly and swept up so many people in this dragnet who are obviously, wrong, that like that is what's creating the public pressure.
I don't know if they've miscalculated. I obviously believe they've miscalculated, but yeah, it might not be 80-20 anymore. But I just mean 50-50. I think the country by and large at this point is very much comfortable with this.
They're comfortable with they're comfortable with people who are gang members. But I think that what I'm talking about is these edge cases that have made. But I
don't know. Are the edge cases breaking through? I don't know.
Well, where would they be breaking through if not on Joe Rogan? I mean, he speaks exactly to that base.
A one-off from Rogan is one thing.
Yeah, no, and we'll see how this plays out. But look, it's nobody ever lost their shirt betting against or betting on the Trump administration to double down, betting on things ultimately working out okay for them. But the only point I'm making here is that this is not the fight they wanted to pick. They did not want to be in the trenches, having to defend, they admitted in court that they deported this guy in error, right? I mean, that's not a place that they wanted to be in. That's a huge black eye for them. And that's the reason why they are diverting and trying to dodge back to this thing.
The only thing I would add is that, it's very evident, and we've reported on this, Adrian reported on this, that Democrats are not really eager to pick up this fight because they view it as a loser. But that's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
They view everything as a loser. They're scared of it.
Almost everything.
They wanted to talk about the price of eggs, but guess what? The price of eggs are actually going down. So you can't do that one anymore, Democrats. Maybe talk about some of this other stuff that's real. I don't know.
I don't know. My point is it's self-fulfilling. If you don't talk about it, it doesn't turn into an issue because you've conceded it already. So
have the courage of your convictions, people.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Andrew, thank you for your service and your reporting. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching the video. We appreciate it as well. As a reminder, do subscribe to the feed. It is one of the best out there, if I must say so. We will be in touch. Talk to you soon.
Hey, YouTube fam. If you want to support the Bulwark, the best way to do it is by becoming a YouTube Bulwark Plus member. The Bulwark is truly independent. We have no corporate overlords. We're not settling any dumb lawsuits with Trump. By joining, you help support our work, and you can get a bunch of perks right here on this platform. Ad-free content, bonus videos, live streams, and some emojis of me, which I guess some people want. So come join, come hang out, become a Bulwark YouTube Plus member, and I'll be seeing you in the comments. So behave.